Coming to you live from the Business RadioX studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio. Ready to revolutionize your franchise with AI? Franchise Now empowers franchises with advanced AI solutions, automatic processes, and enhanced marketing strategies. From personalized customer interactions to predictive analytics, we help you harness AI to drive growth and efficiency. Transform your franchise with the power of AI. Visit Franchise Now to learn more and take your business into the future. Now, here's your host.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Franchise Marketing Radio. We have another exciting episode to delve into and explore the latest trends, insights, and success stories from some of the most prominent franchise leaders in the industry. I'm your host, Rob Ganley, and today I have with me Scott SirLouis. He's the COO of FSC Franchise. And I'm going to let Scott tee up the different brands they represent. And welcome to the show, Scott. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Rob. It's great to be here. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And so, I'd like to start, as I told you earlier, just why don't you help us understand how this recent role with FSC came to be? But you have a long history with other brands too. So tell us a little bit about your journey here in franchising.
Sure. I've been in the restaurant industry my whole life. It's really the only job I've ever had. Was an entrepreneur and created a concept and built it up to 5 units and then sold those. Went to work primarily the bulk of my career prior to this is with a brand called Fazoli's. They're a fast casual Italian chain, about 200 units out of Lexington, Kentucky. Was there for 16 years, and then an opportunity came with FSC. I tried our brands that we had at that point, Beef O'Brady's and the Brass Tap, and loved the concepts, loved the brands, and was offered the opportunity to come down here and work with Chris Elliott, our CEO, on driving this organization. So I've been here 7 years. It's been a great run so far, and I'm excited about what's coming up.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So there's 3 brands, but I know there's 2 sort of brands that have been there a while. So why don't you help us understand that, but maybe just a little bit about each brand and what makes them unique. What is their angle?
Sure. FSC is the owner and franchisor of 3 different brands. Our legacy brand is called Beef O'Brady's. It's founded in 1985 in Tampa, which is where our headquarters is at. Beef O'Brady's, or Beefs, as we call it a lot, has 133 units right now. About 80 of them are Florida. The rest are scattered throughout the country, primarily Southeast and Midwest. It's a family sports pub, we call it. So casual dining, great menu of basic American food, a lot of chicken wings, burgers, nachos, sandwiches, and so forth. AUVs run about $1.8 million, although we do have our top quartile is almost $2.5 million, and we do last year had our first $4 million AUV Beef O'Brady's, so we're very excited about that. Our other brand is called the Brass Tap, and we acquired the Brass Tap. It was actually founded here in Tampa as well by some former Beef O'Brady's franchisees. But the Brass Tap originally was a craft beer bar. We have evolved that brand over the, 12 years that we've owned it until it's now more of it's still a craft beer bar. That's still a large component of the brand, but we also have a significant food component. We run about 45% food at this point. We've added liquor into the brand and really craft cocktails. So Brass Tap is really all about kind of a craft approach to beverages, beer and cocktails, but also food as well. We have 49 of those. We open up our 50th store on this coming Monday, so we're excited about that. That store is scattered across that brand is scattered across the country. We've got some in Florida, but we've got a lot in Dallas, a lot in California, Phoenix, the Washington, D.C., Virginia, Baltimore area. So it's really a nationwide brand there, and we're excited about the growth potential in that brand. We're growing that brand at the pace of about 20 stores a year. And then we just recently acquired in November of last year a great brand called Nuke's Eatery. Nuke's is a fast casual deli cafe concept based in Jackson, Mississippi, and they've got 97 locations. Great concept. Absolutely excellent food quality. We're really excited about the potential there. AUVs in that brand are north of 2.3 million. So it's a really solid option for franchisees at this point as well. So those are our three brands, and we kind of are growing those at different paces depending on where they're at in their life, but they're all very solid concepts.
Yeah, they sound like it. So if I did my math right, I think that, so you have three brands and you're pushing 300 locations. I think that was about right. Or will be.
Yep.
There. And they're all, you just made a comment that, all three of them have sort of different growth trajectories based on, I guess, your strategy. So I was going to ask, how do you scale? So these are different brands. So maybe what is the secret with these different brands? Is there a secret with the style of restaurant as to how fast or how you might manage your scaling? But I know obviously growth is a big focus. So how do you manage that and do it right so that, you get the result you want?
Sure. Well, each of the brands really fits a different market niche. So, Beef O'Brady's really does well in small town cities and towns kind of across the Southeast. So I mentioned our highest volume store. That one's in Owensboro, Kentucky. We've got other really high volume stores in Marianna, Florida, and Wauchula, Florida, and Albertville, Alabama. And so that brand is primarily owner operated, and it's designed for the franchisee that knows everybody in town and wants to be the local gathering place for his friends and neighbors or her friends and neighbors, and really is embedded in the community. While we compete with, certainly the national casual dining brands in some markets, and I think we do well going up head to head against them, particularly on hospitality and food quality. Where our real sweet spot is in those kind of small town America where the brand and the owner is just at the heart of the community. So growth in that one is a little different. You have to target a different kind of franchisee. As I said, they're primarily owner operators, right? Mm-hmm. Now, Brass Tap is a little different. It's a little more of a major metro brand. We do really well in Dallas. We do really well in Phoenix. We do really well in Baltimore, in Northern Virginia. And we have a lot of multi-unit franchisees in the Brass Tap brand. We like to go into, kind of upper income, upper middle income neighborhoods where we can be the local neighborhood gathering place. It's very event driven. At the Brass Tap, we do things like trivia nights, we do karaoke, we do partnerships with local breweries. It's very much a local brand. We try and run it like a chain, so you get all the advantages of running the chain, but also allow the owners to really localize their Brass Tap or each one that they own or operate, primarily in partnerships with a lot of the local, like I said, craft breweries. The multi-unit operators in that brand, it's a little easier to grow quickly in that brand because given the high alcohol mix, system-wide, we're at 55% liquor, beer, wine sales. The margins on that tend to be a bit higher, if not significantly higher than a traditional casual dining location. So they're a little less expensive to build out. The stores are, about 3,200 square feet. And then you combine that with a good solid top line, and the high alcohol mix, and you've got a nice recipe for a really good return on investment for a franchisee. So we've had a lot of success at attracting multi-unit franchisees that want to go out and build, 5 or 6 locations. As a matter of fact, we've pretty much sold out the Dallas market. We've got, as I said, 49 stores open. There is around 95 in the pipeline, and we've already sold 20 deals this year on the Brass Tap side.
But that just real quick, I know you got one more, but
Yeah,
just with that sounds like there's a lot of momentum there, though. I mean, is that like you're expecting that? It seems like that might just really start to take off.
yeah.
That's a huge, but
Brass Tap is our high growth brand, and we're very excited about it. There's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of interest in the franchise community. Leads come pouring into our development department literally every day. So yeah, we're excited about that brand.
That's cool. Yeah.
And Nukes is new to us. We're excited about Nukes as well. Their growth has been a little slower than Brass Tap, but the potential for Nukes is sky high. They have solid sales per unit. They have excellent food quality. The margins are strong. So we're experimenting with a little bit of a different prototype. Particularly post-COVID, we're looking to get into smaller prototypes in Nukes. That brand does about 60% total off-premise. So the newer stores that we're building, we just opened up in McGee, Mississippi. Stores opening up really strong. It's about a 3,200 square foot store versus, traditional Nukes. It was built pre-COVID. It might be 4,500, 4,600 square feet. But given the shift in the industry to off-premise, we feel like there's an opportunity to downsize the dining rooms and drive the returns on investment in that brand as well. So we're just getting started, really kind of kicking off growth in that brand, but we feel really strong about the possibilities.
Yeah, and I just picked up on a few. Like you unpacked a ton there, and I like to try to break some things down just so people catch some of the points. So I really thought was really interesting what you said about Beef O'Brady's, that, you really know that candidate, that entrepreneur, that franchisee is that guy, that mayor, right? That he knows everybody or wants to be, is trying to be, but really wants that gathering, that sort of Cheers feel. I don't know. But just that, you have your regulars. And so, but that about as a franchise development department, really want to know who is our profile. That's perfect for this. And then you also know the parts of the country that seem to do even better. So that's interesting. And I'm sure that comes, maybe you'll give some insights as to how you know that. It's probably, your data and everything. And then the other two brands offer different profiles, right? And more metro, multi-unit. And so you really understand how to appeal to the person you're speaking to. What are their goals and objectives? What are their personality and all of that? But it was interesting to hear you break it down because it's very specific. And the candidates. Do you ever have crossover though, where people do? Well, I know the third brand is newer, but any ever crossover yet or thoughts of it?
That's a really good point and a great question, because that's actually one of the things that we were the most excited about in picking up the Nukes brand is the possibility for crossover. We have a lot of franchisees. As a franchisee, there's two ways to expand. You can either continue to do your existing brand in more geographically spread out locations, or you could stay in your home market and do another brand. And so we're really kind of counting on, we've got a lot of franchisees in markets like Birmingham. We've got a multi-unit franchisee in Birmingham that has shown interest in potentially the adding a Nukes into his portfolio. So it's an opportunity by having those two brands that kind of share general geographic type of areas. They both fit well in these kind of metro markets. It gives us the chance to go back to existing franchisees on both sides, both on the existing Nukes franchisees and existing Brass franchisees, and give them an opportunity to expand their business into another brand without having to go, to a far-flung city where they're dealing with having to travel to get to where their stores are.
Yeah, I've heard it more than once from brands like yourself, and where you're bigger and you're scaling. But it's like, a lot of times dominating sort of a metro area, if you've got the opportunity, it's like leverage, right? So it's good to focus. Like, all right, we're in Dallas now. Let's do more Dallas. I mean, ideally, if you could. So is that part of when you're thinking of growth and just unit growth, are you targeting markets and saying this one, we gotta press that? Like you said, we're almost sold out in Dallas, but that's probably great, right? You want that versus like, let's scatter it 5 different states, right? Rather have 5 more in Dallas. And really, is that sort of the thinking though? If you could do, I know ideally it's not always possible, but is that what you try to do with these types of
Well,
businesses?
I will say we are like a lot of franchisors, we take opportunity when it comes up. We always want to penetrate new markets, and if franchisee thinks they've got a great location for one of our brands, we want to be there to support them to do that. With that said, there are advantages to penetrating existing DMAs. You get a lot of synergies on the distribution side, and then there is a natural AUV lift that comes from having brand penetration in the market, simply because having more locations just drives top of mind awareness with consumers, because they're simply just, they're seeing more of your brand as they travel around town and drive. So, and then the last big thing on it in terms of building out a market is you get marketing efficiencies as well. So, we've got stores in Atlanta, and we would love to do, major broadcast marketing in Atlanta, but we've got 5 stores in the market, so it's prohibitively expensive. A market like Dallas, we're getting the penetration of Dallas with the Brass Tap, where we can go in and start to explore doing mass media, broadcast TV and so forth. And then in our core markets in Florida, where we've got particularly a lot of the Beef O'Brady's brands, we do have sufficient penetration that we do a lot of media marketing, broadcast TV in Central and Western Florida.
Okay.
So there's three things that drive penetrating markets. So we'd love to build out existing markets, but we'll take them wherever you want to sell them, wherever you want to buy them.
Right. Well, you could do it. But that's what I wanted to hear. I figured there were some leverage points and some things to consider, and certainly, and that's the other thing. So you mentioned TV a few times with Beef O'Brady's in Florida. Is what media do you find is good bang for your buck for the kind of businesses you guys work with? Is it like the local TV? What do you find is really impactful once you get bigger in these markets?
When you have scale in a market, broadcast TV remains the most effective medium right now. I mean, we run a multimedia approach to our marketing, so we do digital, we do a lot of social, we do the blanking on the term, but it's like the YouTube TV and Hulu. It's the streaming services
Over the top, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but in those markets where you have the penetration, there's still nothing that beats broadcast, just legacy old. Get on the local stations and run your ads on there. I mean, it continues to be the vehicle that drives the most impact to our sales.
Yeah, I love local. I love franchising because of the local idea of it, and I think a lot of people like that. So when you see a local commercial, it just feels like, oh, that's my neighbor. And, versus all this global stuff.
That's the hometown brand.
Yeah. So there is, it's interesting because I do think that matters. Like that, we know it almost, the feel of it, right? Like when you see one of those commercials, it feels different sometimes than this big flashy national commercial. But anyway, I can imagine that does strike the audience differently. And you're saying, hey, it works good. And that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So, with technology, okay, we've got this interesting dynamic going on with the world today, and it's definitely paradigm shifting. And when I talk to brands a lot like you, restaurants or entertainment or retail, where people are gathering and coming to the brand, I feel like the opportunity is huge to build on that premise. Because I think the idea of gathering and socialization, we're actually lacking. It's actually gone in reverse the last 10, 15 years, where we're in our screens, we're virtual a lot. So I think the local brand, when you go to a place that you enjoy and you know people, it's going to become more and more important and more desirable, in my opinion. And I know franchises think about that. Obviously, restaurant brands, it's all about experience and relationship. So tell me a little bit about the technology, though, because you obviously you want to create this experience. You don't want to lose that. That'll never change, I guess is what I want to say. No matter what the technology can do, you still want to create that environment, right, for your customers. So tell me though, how has technology affected some of your brands? What are some of the key things you're looking at right now, or maybe a project you just finished? I know point of sale systems drive a lot of things. So anything you want to share about technology that has helped your operational efficiencies?
Sure. So I think the restaurant industry in particular is playing a little bit of catch up on the technology front over the last 10 years. And you see the pioneering brands, and I admire there's some real technological pioneers in our business. Domino's is the one that everybody references. They were so far ahead of the game for so long. But everyone's catching up. And I will say that today, technology, particularly consumer facing technology in the restaurant industry, is basically table stakes. If you don't have an app, you don't have a way for somebody to find you online, you don't have a way to manage your online reputation, to work through search and all of those sorts of things, you're going to be at a gigantic disadvantage with everybody else. So, we have invested heavily in technology, particularly in the last 7 years, to the point where I think we have a really, really robust tech stack, particularly from the consumer-facing side. So, all the brands have branded apps. We focus a lot on our loyalty programs. We run, campaigns, all the various things that you do with consumer loyalty. We're trying to shift. Right now, we're actively trying to shift a lot of our online ordering presence into our mobile apps. That's the lowest cost of customer acquisition. So we're excited about what's going on in that. And one of the Brass Tap brand in particular, I think that app is unique. It's custom built for us. It sits on top of the native app functionality in our POS, but we added some custom software on top of that does some really cool things that are kind of unique to the Brass Tap brand. If you sign up for our loyalty program at the Brass Tap, the app will track every single beer you've ever tried in a Brass Tap, and you get a beer log that tells you all the things that you've tried. And we've got people that are very competitive about that. There's a guy in Austin, Texas, that is actually the system-wide leader right now, and he's tried over 8,000 different beers in his local Brass Tap. It's incredible to think about. That it's hard to believe there's 8,000 different beers in the country.
Well, yeah, it's hard to believe we have time to drink 8,000. Hopefully, there were shots,
Right,
little
right.
tasters, right?
So it's great on that app, and there's a loyalty spend reward component to it as well. But the cool part is tracking the beers. We run leaderboards for each store, so the store knows like which of their regular customers has tried the most beers, and we give out T-shirts and prizes and things to people that are, that are the leaders. It's a lot of fun for the consumer. It's a lot of fun for the operators as well. But then that Brass Tap app also keeps track of what we have on tap or cocktail programs at any of our Brass Taps, and we rotate through. Brass Tap generally has 60 beer taps in there. We rotate probably 20 of them every week. That come through different brands and different styles of beer. And so if you're a Brass Tap regular, you can go into your app and be able to find out what's new at your local Brass Tap. Or if you're looking for a particular beer, you can go into the app and figure out which Brass Tap it's currently being offered at, so you can go to that place. So there's a lot of really cool functionality that goes into that Brass Tap mobile app, and the consumers are really responding to it.
Yeah. Now, everything you're talking about with that is what I see as right now. Like you said earlier, table stakes. It's becoming like table stakes. In other words, on demand, like personalization, like knowing how many beers I tried. That is helpful. That and maybe recommending later, and like this is what we're used to as consumers, right? It's how we're buying now, and it does make it exciting, and it does make it. It gamifies it, to use that word. It kind of makes it like, hey, I can see people at the bar talking about it, right? So very cool stuff. That's what marketing is about, and that's what tech should be about. But I do want to ask, about that. Like, so you did some cool things. Obviously, decisions are made about technology. How do you make a decision about implementing something new? At some point, that app was a new idea or was becoming one. How do you make decisions so it's not like, oh, we're just trying to keep up to do it versus, hey, this is going to impact our customer, our brand. We need to do this. How do you make those decisions?
Sure. Well, we're always trying to stay on top of what's going on in the industry and industry trends. There's a lot of investment in technologies directed towards the restaurant space right now. I think I was recently at the National Restaurant Show in Chicago, and I think the technology section of the show, I remember when it was like one little corner of one room, and now it's probably dominating at least one of the halls in the at the show. So it seems like there's more and more vendors every year. So you really have to stay on top and figure out what's new, what's cutting edge, what's out there that could potentially make you more attractive to the consumer. Once we find something, we generally like to go in with tests and pilots. We're fortunate in that we're not only the franchisor, but we operate 34 of our Beef O'Brady's and Brass Tap locations, 29 of our Nukes locations. So we have, a good enough scale of corporate operations that we're able to go in and test things in those locations. And, as a franchisor, I feel it's, to be a responsible franchisor, I feel it's part of our job to vet things out and test them out before we go out and ask our franchisees to spend money on it. So we do a lot of that in our own stores. So we generally look at it and test something. I'll give you an example. We recently launched a AI chatbot phone answering service.
Yes, glad to hear this. Yeah.
What we noticed in the stores was, our bartenders are busy, our managers are busy, our servers are busy, and what we noticed was our consumer satisfaction scores on our phone in carryout orders was suffering, and we think it was driven a lot by the stores are just busy, and it's hard for the managers and the bartenders and everybody to answer the phone on a regular basis. We thought we were missing potential orders simply by not being able to answer the phone. At the same time, if the bartender's on the phone taking a to-go order, they're not taking care of the guests that are sitting at the bar. And so there's an opportunity cost that goes along with that as well. So we identified a vendor partner, and there's several of them out there, but particularly with the rise in AI, there's a lot more of these companies coming out that are offering these chatbots to answer the phone or answer the drive-through or whatever. We ran that in a test in one location for 60 days. Results were positive. We started to see orders and order volume go up, while phone calls to the restaurant actually went way down. We were processing about 80% of total phone calls into the restaurant were successfully processing through the chatbot. So we expanded it out to 6 more of our corporate stores, ran it for another 3 months, then expanded it out to all 30 of our corporate Beef O'Brady's. We've been running that for 3 months, and then we're going to launch it and make it available to the system, to franchisees at our national brand conference in July. So that's an example of kind of how we do the process in terms of vetting out new technology for our franchisees.
That's awesome. You're the first person that shared that that type of, because I'm around that stuff all the time. But that's yeah. And so, but you also own. Is it unique that you own so many of your own? And that is a real advantage to be able to test at scale, right? You're not like piloting a handful of franchisee locations. You're able to say, look, we can even do 30 before we announce it. So you've done rigorous testing. But is that unique though? Or do a lot of franchise brands really own a good chunk of locations?
I think, I mean, based on, I don't have any data on this, but just based on my gut feeling is that a lot of franchise brands own, some of their corporate system. my CEO has the approach that he says, listen, if you don't own your own brands, then you don't have any skin in the game. And it builds credibility with our franchisees when we can say, listen, we run the stores just like you do. And we know the challenges of labor and profitability and all those sorts of things. The other thing it gives us an opportunity to do is we share our corporate store P&Ls with all of our franchisees every month. We're very transparent about it. And so my franchise consultants will sit down with individual franchisees and with benchmark P&Ls out of the corporate stores, similar sales volume stores, and just go down kind of line by line and help a franchisee see where they might have opportunity to make some more money. Or, there's plenty of times where franchisees are outperforming the corporate stores and we start taking lessons from them. And together, then we all end up being more successful in that. So, I think it's critical as a franchisor to make sure that you've got a sufficient store base of your brands that you operate yourself. It makes you so much more successful as a franchisor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, being able to test in the way you have incrementally, but also multiple locations and over time, that's really helpful. That's a thorough test, right? It's not, oh, we're good for a couple of weeks, but that's good stuff. And yeah, it's very interesting. I knew that a lot of AI was being, that was a very obvious place. Another good place is with sort of inbound leads coming from the internet and helping interact with those leads. So, but yeah, I heard a lot about people testing receptionist kind of type of work, like inbound calls, and it's good to hear that you had success and you're finding success with it. So, congrats on being early with that too, and I'm sure it'll continue to help. And it'll only get better. That I do know. It will only get better. So, I don't think you'll have a problem in the future. Well, good stuff. Thank you for sharing. So, you're successfully and have successfully worked with restaurant brands that most of them are, well, really over 100 units. I mean, I know some in the pipeline would get you there, but all three brands are over or close to 100 units or getting over, right? So these are bigger. These are getting bigger. And what advice would you have for a guy in your role, but they're dealing with an emerging brand, maybe 10 to 40 units, maybe they're just getting going. There's a lot of them out there, and we love to see new brands come in. What advice would you have for a restaurant brand, to get to where you guys are? What would be the important things to be thinking
about? I think as you scale up any restaurant concept, particularly if you're an entrepreneur and you founded the restaurant concept, the biggest risk you run is losing the brand direction, the brand essence, whether it be food quality or hospitality or whatever it is. As you get larger than is physically possible for you as the leader to be in each location on a regular basis, you run the risk of losing who you are. And so I would say one of the biggest things to do is to develop a culture of excellence, a culture of operations, because at the heart of it, operations is restaurants. There's marketing gets people in the door. Finance keeps track of everything. Technology is a way to do things. But at the end of the day, it's about the food quality that guest gets in every one of your units and the hospitality that they feel when they walk into every one of your units. And so as a leader of a small brand or an emerging brand, I would figure out quickly how to make sure that I was building that culture where my vision and my standards were shared by the whole organization. And that's been something that we've worked hard at here, where, we've put things in place around a lot, enhanced training and, we track a lot of metrics and I believe you get what you measure, but it's not about inspecting. It's more about helping people understand what's going on in their business and in their restaurant, right? So an example of that is we look at online reputation a lot. And we look at Yelp reviews and Google reviews and Facebook reviews and all of the things that are out there. because there's nothing better for getting a pulse on what is actually happening in your brand and what your customers, your guests truly feel. And so we do a lot of reporting out to our franchisees and out to our stores. And when we see a store that's trending, in maybe with some unfavorable trends in their online reputation, we jump all over it and get with that franchisee and say, hey, let's go through these and just, this is what your guest is telling you. So this is what's happening maybe when you're not here. And it really is critical to making sure that your franchisees understand how important it is just to deliver a great experience to each and every guest.
Yeah, I'm kind of chuckling in my mind here because I remember watching an episode with Gordon Ramsay, the famous chef. He has all the shows, helps turn around these little restaurants, some of them. And I just remember one episode, it was about that, where the owner just wouldn't face the bad reviews. It was like, you really almost had to confront. He had to be confronted and read that. And this is what they're thinking. I mean, what are you missing here? But I mean, just to take that extra step and sit down and say, this is how they're feeling, regardless of why. You just got to get to that can't be that, right? Over and over. It's just going to keep going downward. So, but that confrontation, I won't call it that. It was more of a consultation or coaching, but it needs to happen, is what I'm saying. Like the face-to-face reality. Someone saying, look at that, all right? Because you can quickly push it aside, it seems, and just kind of tell yourself, no, it was an isolated thing, or whatever. But anyway, you take the time to say, wait a minute, something's trending the wrong way, and sit down and move out. And that alone, I think, is good advice. That one thing could make all the difference. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
I would say a critical key to that is you have to have the relationship with the franchisee to start. Because you use the word confrontation. It can't be a confrontation. It's got to be, hey, I'm on your side. I'm here to help you be successful. So let's talk about the feedback that we're getting. So, that's not the only thing we measure. We measure profitability and food cost. I mean, all the metrics that everybody measures, right? And we try and sit down with our franchisees and go through those to help them understand, what's going on in the restaurant and what's going on in the business. But all of that has to operate from a base of a strong relationship with your franchisee, because otherwise then it does become confrontational and no one wins.
And you don't scale that way, right? Your brand would not be where it is if you had anything like that going on. That's they'll get stagnant very quickly. But yeah, I do think it's just amazing though to have that as a restaurant owner. You're getting into a business, being a franchisee. I know many of them probably have backgrounds, but to have, I just have to point out that level of consulting, that it doesn't exist anywhere. When speaking to your business, looking at your P&Ls, understanding because they run the same things, right? And you have all these folks doing similar things. So you have that level of knowledge and then the engagement of talking about those things. Honestly, I don't know how you can fail if you respond, if you participate, right? Because running a business on your own, you got nothing like that. You just have to know those things or pursue learning them. So, and a lot of people don't. So that's really helpful.
I think it's clearly paying off for us. I mean, we do franchisee satisfaction surveys every year, and we take the feedback that we get out of those really seriously. We just recently completed our 2024. We generally do it in the early spring of every year. And we had 80% of our franchisees in both the Brass Tap and Beef O'Brady's rate us, highly satisfied or satisfied. So top box of 80% on overall satisfaction. And I think that might be industry leading. I mean, we've got some really pleased, really happy franchisees out there in our brands. And I think it stems from our approach of building relationships, helping them run their business, giving them the metrics and the tools they need to be successful, to drive the sales and drive the bottom line.
Yeah, that's amazing. So as we wrap up here, I wanted to make sure the audience knows the best way to engage with you guys. And it seems like it would be an amazing opportunity to talk to your team or yourself. I don't know how much you're involved. I'm sure you are at some point, but the reality is you've got 3 amazing brands. They're unique. They're synergistic in a lot of ways. And you guys do amazing support training, everything you've taught, the technology. Like I can tell you right now, like I told you, the fact that you've been that far out in front with the AI. Congratulations. And you've already tested it. You're already ready to launch it. It's exactly where I would say you'd want to be. Right. So that's really good. It's supportive. If I'm a franchisee, I want to know that my brand is on top of things like that. So I don't need to be too concerned. And that's pretty amazing stuff. So thanks for sharing. But before we go, what is the best way for folks to reach out to the team?
The best place to start is the websites, and we have websites for each individual brand. So beefobradys.com or rasstapbeerbar.com or nukes.com. And if you go there, there's a franchise link on each one of those pages that'll take you in to get you, some initial information that you might need. And then the contact form so you can reach out to our development team. My development team works round the clock. These guys, they're answering inquiries. They're answering them on the weekends, and they love to hear from prospective franchisees. You can get all the info you need to make a decision.
Yeah, I was just thinking, as a guy that was in the sales role, it's you want to be there at the right time. But anything else? So that's amazing. And anything they should prepare? Any advice you'd give someone that's looking at one of the brands? Anything they should be thinking about or prepare? Or
yeah, I think the first thing is go experience one of the brands as a consumer.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
cool about it, and see if you can see yourself owning one of these places. Because we can show you how to run it, but you've got to want to, you've got to love it, you've got to feel like it's your home. So go in a place and see how you feel.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, so that's probably the best advice, because that vibe, that's where you're going to be a lot, right? That environment. That's the great advice. I appreciate that. Well, Scott, it's been a pleasure having you here. I definitely want to have you back and keep talking about things like, creating a great experience for people, but also balancing this thing called technology and AI and all that. So we'll see where things go a year from now. But you got some big things happening in July. So congrats on that. And we'll talk soon. But thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you, Rob.